Here we go. Hey, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Buzzing About Romance Happy Hour edition. Tonight, we are celebrating author Lexi Ryan. Becky, you want to read her bio, please?
Yes. New York Times and USA Today bestselling author Lexi Ryan's novels have been described as intense, emotional, and wickedly sexy. A former college professor, she now writes full-time from her home in Indiana, where she lives with her husband, 2 children, and a neurotic dog. You can find her on Facebook or Twitter to chat about books, TV, and her children's latest antics.
Welcome to the show, Lexi. I don't know where that one came from.
I brought all my stuff to make martinis. Well, a martini, because
you're going to make on screen.
Totally going to make on screen. I already put my ice in here though, so the first thing I need to do is strain out the extra water.
Don't dilute the drink.
Yeah, we don't want that because lemon drop martinis are the thing in Orchid Valley. And,
yes.
Well, and Becky and I joined the theme tonight, so we both have them.
You do?
Yes. We're both drinking. I have a double lemon drop martini.
And I also do. And actually, mine was kind of strong, so I had to put some sparkling water in it.
Just add more vodka. Take it up a little more. It's fine.
Well, my husband hands it to me and he goes, "Don't chug this. There's a lot of alcohol in it." And I said, "So what you're saying is I should chug this and you'll make more." He's like,
and then you'll snap your fingers and say, "Bring me more.
Bring me more."
So I like to use my lemon if I'm fancy and use it to wet the edges of the glass. And then
she's using a real glass too.
And
she is
into the you got it. I do like a good martini in a martini glass, and then you use that to rim it with sugar, not salt, please.
Super yummy. And you described them so perfectly in the book too, with her sugared rim and everything.
So I've always liked them, but then when I started writing the series, I suddenly craved them constantly. It was bad.
So typically I'm a vodka gimlet girl, which is basically the same thing, but with lime.
With lime, yeah.
Yeah.
I went through a vodka gimlet phase. I can get away with a little less simple syrup in the lemon drop. And the gimlet, I think because of the lime, I just can't quite.
It's a little more
it's so tart.
puckery.
Yeah, and this is my secret that I shared that recipe on my newsletter, and I don't actually measure anything. I
just dump and hope.
Half a lemon, and I dump some vodka in there.
She's not measuring, people.
Dump some triple sec in there. So we can talk while I bartend over here.
So the rules of the night, you can ask all the questions you want in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. In the description of the video are the links to all of the places that you will need. If you follow, like, and subscribe, at the end of the night, one lucky person will win a swag-filled box from us.
Well, yes, and Lexi has a book up for sale, or up for grabs.
I'm going to give away all 3 in the series.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to need to exit and enter the chat. Just kidding. Oh, this is such a great series.
My favorite cover. Oh,
it is a pretty cover. I love that cover.
Okay, so whoever is watching and hanging out with us, if you stick around, you have a chance to win a copy of each of the books in this series so far. So
like how I changed it on you?
No, I love that.
Prepared, and I'm like, no, I changed my mind.
Tanya, Leanne's with us. Elizabeth and Tanya so far have said hi. If you're here, say hi to us in the chat. Sally's here. She said, for real? Yep, for real. You can get a copy of each of those books. And then we have a candle that smells like apple pie. And then my girl child made a book sleeve.
I love it. That is gorgeous.
And then a coffee cup sleeve. So instead of using like the paper one at the Starbucks, you can have a fabric one.
Is she a seamstress?
She's a 15-year-old that's stuck at home because her mother's a germaphobe.
Girl, fair.
She can't have her vaccine. She has to be 16 to get her vaccine, and she won't be 16 until June. So we just
Oh, I
keep.
was going to say Pfizer's pushing for emergency approval, but that's like she'll be 16 by the time they
Yeah.
could possibly get it. So
Everybody else in our household is vaccinated. We're just waiting for June. Cheers, friend, and congratulations on an amazing story.
thank you so much. And I have sugar on my lips all night now.
Hey, Tina. Thanks for joining us. Tanya, Michael can give bartending lessons this summer. My friend Tanya wants to know if my husband can train her husband to be her bartender. We hear that a lot. He makes all the fancy drinks.
He does.
He does.
So let's get to know you a little bit. Are you a reader of romance?
Oh, yes. I am a huge romance reader. When I find out that romance authors, because some romance authors, some aren't readers at all, which,
yes.
But some don't read romance for various reasons, and that always blows my mind too. But I have been a huge romance fan since I read my first romance novel I think I was in 7th grade. It maybe was the summer between 7th and 8th. I think it was the summer between 7th and 8th because it was when my best friend from elementary school was leaving town. So my first romance novel that I ever read was A Knight in Shining Armor. And
Jude Devereaux.
Jude Devereaux. And after that, it was on, like I could not get enough. Yeah. So I'm a huge fan.
That's my love language. Everybody who has followed along knows that like Jude Devereaux is my obsession. She and my mother went to college together.
Are you serious?
Sisters. Yeah. And I had to buy.
I saw her in New York at RWA and sat in her little spiel. I don't even know what she was talking about. It didn't matter. But she handed out, she was just talking about like keeping notes and organizing and stuff. And she handed out these little note pages where she'd scribbled notes she just had a stack and she was like, pass these around, you can take some. First of all, the balls to be able to be like, I know that you all want my scribbles, but we did. She was right. Yeah. And I still have mine. They're on a bulletin board in my messy closet, but I was like, there's like a random call Jim with a phone number like up in the corner. I mean, these are just like anyone's notebook notes. And it was very special. I devoured everything of hers.
I bought, and Leah's going to roll her eyes. Have you seen the Jude Devereaux, the Raider Barbie?
No. There's a Raider Barbie?
There is. It's the cover from the 1980s. The Raider with the blue dress and him is the black pirate with the mask.
I remember which one is the Raider.
That's the first in the Montgomery stateside in the shipping industry during the Revolutionary War.
I think I'm Team Taggart.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to everyone who's watching who doesn't do Jude Devereaux because you're like, I don't know what she's talking about. But there are the Montgomerys and there are the Taggart. And the
Taggarts so this is when the family merges. This is the book where they merge because she's the Taggart and he's the Montgomery. And they come together and they sneak away to the island.
How do I not remember this book?
Well, anyway, my mother bought me the Barbie off eBay because I was like, I have to have this. She's like, you do.
She's
like, you do. So Leah's like, I'm so over the Barbie.
Well, I've heard about the Barbie a lot.
I love the Barbie. It's pretty special for me.
Although it is really cool because she has the book and she has the Barbie because she had to have the cover and have the Barbie and she took pictures together and she's like, look, I have both of them.
And if my office remodel ever gets done, the Barbie will sit behind me for these lives.
I love it. My gosh.
I'm such a Jude Devereaux fan. Like, I read all of her stuff. I love her. Anyway.
Like certain things, I haven't read her stuff in so long, but I read it and reread it and reread it when I was in high school. And certain things never leave my memory. There's a scene in Mountain Laurel where he like falls and gets thorns in his back and it's like an excuse to touch him. And she uses this piece of like cooked turkey. And there's just this visual of her using cooked turkey to take these thorns out of his back. But it's really hot.
Yes. I always think of
I'll take your word for it. I don't know about that one.
The twins, Fire and Ice, that is the first in the Colorado series of the Taggarts.
Yeah.
And when she goes out riding on the horse and he follows her back and then he like paddles her because she's gone and done naughty things. And I was just, anyway.
So my favorite Jude Devereaux is Sweet Liar, which is a contemporary.
Yes.
It's kind of I mean, it is contemporary, but there's a lot to do with like the 20s in it.
Yeah,
Um,
flashbacks.
yeah, Michael Taggart. Oh,
Yeah. Anyway.
and Sam. I I just they're so good, and she like won't be with him because she's got issues,
Yeah.
and then but she'll like let him touch her when there are people around because she doesn't feel like it's going to go anywhere, and it's so hot.
It is so hot. Here is the thing. This is probably why I love your book so much, because like it's the Jude Devereaux bond.
Your
Like maybe
kindred
I sensed it
spirits.
through your books.
Maybe.
Leah,
I mean,
nice.
that's like early impressions, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I started reading at 14. I started sneaking them from my mother. So around 7th, 8th grade, she always had the hard copy when it came out, and I would steal them from her. And The Conquest was my first one that I read, which was medieval romance. And then there was no stopping me.
Yeah, right. So Sarah, what's her last name? Sarah, current writer who writes historicals. McLean. Sarah
Oh, yeah.
McLean.
So
Mhm.
I was talking to her in the bar and telling, we were talking to Jude Devereaux, and she loves the I forget it. She named it, and I was like, oh, but it's got rape in it. And she started chatting with me about it, and I was like, I love Jude Devereaux, and I get it, and I understand it was the time, but I had issues with it, and I read it when I was so young, and I couldn't like put it in the lens of the time. And she was like, I bet I could tell you what your favorite Jude Devereaux book is. And I was like, there are a lot of Jude Devereaux books,
Yeah,
right?
like 2 books a year.
And she was like, you like Sweet Liar. You like, she couldn't wear white around him. And I was like, what kind of witchery? Because
It's her party trick.
I know it's a really cool party trick.
That's so funny. Oh. Which Jude Devereaux are you? That's like a BuzzFeed.
A very, very niche BuzzFeed.
Right? So Jude Devereaux is 75 this year.
No
She is
way.
75 this year. And she has a new book coming out this summer. She's still writing.
I might have to read one. I don't know if I can't say I've never read her. I don't remember reading her.
I loved her. Love her. Love her. She has a series that takes place on the West Coast that is early teens, like 1912, 1913.
Gold Rush kind of, no, not
Yeah.
Gold Rush.
Oh, I wonder if the one you're thinking of is her Eden book.
Yeah,
The one that he like,
kind of a Western.
yes. And then she goes up into like the gold rush and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That book is like 900,000 pages long. Like it's thick. But yeah, if that book was written today, well, it wouldn't be, because it kind of has some rape and lots of other issues with it.
So Leah, if you're gonna read one,
Don't read that one.
You can grab the invitation, and there is a novella. The invitation is 3 novellas, and there's a novella in the invitation about Michael Taggart's twin brother.
Okay.
You can just read that one. I will find out what it's called for you.
Okay.
It's like a mom's playing matchmaker novella. Oh my God. I think I actually bought the invitation on my Kindle just so I could reread.
Just for that.
Ian Taggart's their dad, and then Michael. And who is Michael's twin brother? So in the families, and the Taggarts have twins, and like only the mom and the girl that they're meant to be with
Can tell them
apart.
Mm. One of those.
One of those.
I like that though.
Okay.
So
So we know she loves
His
romance.
His name's Kane. So yeah, I like romance. Okay, it's all right.
It's okay.
what was your last 5-star read?
Okay, so I always have a book I'm reading on my Kindle, and I always have a book that I'm listening to. So my last 5-star Kindle read was Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. I think that's how you say her name.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Her books are all amazing. She's 3 for 3. So
I've heard that she's good.
And I pretty much don't finish books that aren't 5 stars because life is too short. But no, she's excellent. And then I just finished listening to The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan, which, you know, like Embarrassment of Riches, I think I got in ARC form back in the day. And it was just, I never get to like read as much as I want to. So I get most of my reading listening. So when it was free the other day, I was like, grab that Whisper Sync audio. So good.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Kennedy's amazing. She's just such a good writer. Sometimes I can't read her stuff, honest to goodness.
It's so intense.
Because she's so good that I like have a little meltdown. Like, I'll never be this good. I'll never be able to describe things this way. I'll never be, you know, so I have certain headspaces where it's like, I'm sorry, Kennedy, you are too talented for where I am today.
I can't handle you right now.
Handle you today because you're too good at this. But yeah, oh wow, that was good. So now I'm listening to The Rebel King, which is it's a duology, so it's the next book in the series. And yeah,
she's good. She's good. Didn't she just get a big TV?
She did. Actually, this series, that the Kingmaker and The Rebel King, is part of that deal, and so is the Hoops series, which is the other books by her that I am like constantly shoving at people. It's so hard, and I always wonder about telling people, oh, my books have a lot of feels, because I know as a fan of romance that when I shove a book at someone and say, oh my gosh, it's so intense, I felt all the things, that my friends at least are like, I don't really want to feel too much. Like, don't make me cry. Don't make me like a little uncomfortable, you know, like it's interesting because sometimes we're a little hesitant. And then when we read it, it's like so good. So good.
I want that emotional experience. We kind of I personally went through like a little bit of a book drought at the beginning of the month. I just was frustrated with everything I read. It just didn't live up to what I had hoped, and I really was having issues. And I was telling Lee, I think today on the phone, I said, this is the book that turned it around for me. Like, every time I fall, it like totally pushed me out, and everything I've read since has just been great. I don't know what it was about this story. Like, Dean is my new book boyfriend. One of our followers, Heather, she and I are going to like fight it out for Dean because she's like, he's mine. I'm like, just because you finished it first does not make him yours.
So, I don't know. There are some people who think it works that way.
I mean, it's like she licked him. She licked him and she owns him.
It's hers. He's pretty amazing, though. I do love him.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to put in the chat the link to follow Lexi on Instagram. If you're not following her on following Lexi on Instagram, go ahead and give her a follow over there, so you can find out all the things. You're pretty open with your life. You share, your workout.
Yeah, I do. I think social media is one of those things where everyone has to find their like sweet spot, like what they're comfortable sharing. And there are certain things that are really important to me to be transparent about: mental health issues, like the eternal struggle with my weight and health and those things and how they interact with each other. And then there are certain things that I don't talk about. Like, I don't show pictures of my kids.
Yeah, we don't either. So
I will, I'm sure, like when they're older, and I feel like they're not old enough to make that choice yet,
I have a 17-year-old and a 16 or 15-year-old. They're almost 16 and 18, and they both have asked specifically. Now, my boy child went through a liver transplant a couple years ago, and he was shared on social media, and he knew why then, to put a face to organ donation. But as of now, he has asked that, I just don't want to show my face. So I'm like, okay, I respect that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Right. And my kids are little. And so like, if I put anything up on, like, I'll put a sticker on their face or like blur their face out. Cause like, I mean, they're little, they are not choosing to do it. So
mine are 12 and 9 now, almost 10 and 13. And so sometimes I'll share a picture of them when they're like 1 or 2. I think I shared a picture of Mary on the beach when she was 1. And, so it's like we put the distance between. I don't know. I don't know that it's necessary, but it's just, for me, it's like, I want you to be able to make this choice so you don't
Right.
have to feel like I made a choice for you.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. And I totally agree with that sentiment. So what's your favorite trope, either to read or to write?
Okay, so to write, my favorite trope will forever be an amnesia romance. Like I love, and I've done 2 amnesia love triangles. And I feel like even doing 2 is a lot because how often does this really happen? I just love it so much. And since I can't do amnesia all the time, probably love triangles. I will do those as often as I can. And then, but to read, probably like Friends to Lovers. I love a good slow burn. I want my stomach to do a little flip flop by the time they finally kiss. I also really love hockey romance. I love hockey
Us too.
romance, which is so funny because I don't know anything about hockey. Nothing except from what I've learned reading hockey romance.
Same. Same. We went so far as to do a hockey book boyfriend draft. So this one of our followers, Heather, she and I sat down and we went through all of our hockey romances that we've read, and we came up with, between us, we each had read about 83 hockey romances, and we drafted our book boyfriends. But she had to explain to me, and she's a hockey mom, so she knows, and lives in Minnesota, so she knows. She had to explain to me, like, how many players are on the ice at a time, and
what a line was,
and who would be in each line, and what does second line mean, and always the goalie. And
like, I think I know what a goalie does. I know what a goalie does.
Right.
I understand the concept of the penalty box. I think, maybe, but I love.
You don't need to understand that to enjoy the hockey romance.
Yeah, I love Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, and of course, Marilyn Kelly is my bestie. I don't know if you know this.
She did a happy hour with us for Dirty Talker a couple weeks ago. We adore her.
Yeah, so I'm like, just keep writing hockey. Keep writing hockey.
Yes, Wade. We all fought over Wade.
Wade's the best.
Sally says the Here and Now books are the ones that made Lexi my favorite.
Oh, thank you. So Here and Now series is an amnesia love triangle. And they're Cliffies. So if you ever go in, just know first book has cliffhanger, second book has cliffhanger. But
they're both out, Leah, so don't worry.
They're all out. The whole trilogy is available. But I had so much fun writing those books. In fact, I can't tell you that if you have. Okay, can I spoiler a tiny bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I feel like once something, I think those came out in 2014. So I feel like 7 years later, we can spoil
it's
it.
Fine.
I was on the phone with Lauren Blakely, and when I was writing the first book, and somebody had said about Wish I May, and a book that was in the same world, Lexi Ryan kind of just writes soap operas. And I said, Lauren, I've decided not to take offense to this and to roll with it, to just fully embrace it with all that I am. And she said, well, it's not like you're bringing anyone back from the dead or anything. And I was like, but I could.
Watch me.
It was like gauntlet was thrown, and I'm like, I'm on it.
That's author
embracing the soap opera right there.
I had an author say to me, she was like, I was doing some work for her, and she's like, so I wrote this character. He's kind of Stefano DiMera-ish. And she's like, do you know who that is? I'm like, yeah, I started watching Days of Our Lives when I was 6. Yes. I know who he is. So, I don't know. Maybe soap operas and romance kind of go hand in hand. I mean,
I heard a soap opera writer speak once, and she said, it just meant so much to me because I was like, yes, you're right. Because she said, people will come up to me and be like, those soap operas, I can not watch for 5 years and pick up right where I left off, and I totally know what's going on. And she said, and people say that as if it's like an insult, but my response is always, thank you, because that means I'm doing my job really well. I'm supposed to do my job like that. And I thought, I'm not respecting these people enough, because she's right. That is their job. Like Young and the Restless, I never see Days anymore, but Young and the Restless, it'll be on in my husband's office. Sometimes I'll go at lunchtime and I'll be like, how do I still know what's happening?
Right? They did change some characters up in that soap opera, so it got a little confusing for a couple weeks, but I was quickly
Once you
caught up.
figure out who everybody is, like you're good to go again.
Yeah, those darn actors moving on with their lives.
Well, yeah.
And I always liked when one day you'd watch and the next day the person would be different, but it would be the same person.
Yeah.
Like they just
everyone's
switched.
acting. This person looks completely different. It was like when Bo changed on Days of Our Lives.
Yes.
And I was like, and I'm like, why are they all acting like it's normal? Why can't we just be like, huh, Bo, you got some work done, didn't you?
Right. Well, I always love it when they lead up with it, like there's been like a fire or something and the person's been burned or in a coma, like, and then there's like an unmasking. Yes. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I believe this.
I'm there for it. If I'm gonna watch, my suspension of disbelief is ready. I just watched the entire Vampire Diaries, every season, including that last, like, didn't just jump the shark, like went way into outer space to get over the shark last season, because my daughter was determined that we would not. I was like, why don't we just stop and go on to the originals? Like, I'm done. No, we have to finish it. So I just watched the whole thing and woo.
Yeah, it went a little bananas there at the end.
I didn't watch Vampire Diaries, but I do remember the short-lived soap opera that NBC did called Passions that had like the supernatural in it. And then they had a book. And that is how dedicated I was. I bought that book the day it came out. Because there was like a romance author that was writing a book about the town. And they actually published the book.
Wait, was that the one that it was like the book of... So I have a friend who wrote a book that was written by the romance author, like, but she can never say that she wrote the book because it was written by this fictional character.
Yeah,
and
this
it
is
like
probably
won
it.
awards, and she was like, "This is my most successful book to date, and I can't tell anyone."
Yep, it was like a companion book to the soap opera Passions, and that soap opera was Crazy Town. The doll that came alive,
and crazier and crazier.
There's nothing creepier than dolls. Ugh,
yeah,
or little kid giggles. Blair Witch Project ruined me. You're making me cry. And
glad we could be there for you. Okay, in the chat is Lexi's link to Amazon. If you've watched before, you've heard me give my little Amazon spiel, but it really helps an author when you follow them on Amazon. It'll also alert you when books go up for pre-release. And if you forget to order, you'll also get an email that the book has been released. This is super helpful for authors and you. So follow all your favorite authors over on Amazon.
I know I got like 6 Amazon like emails today. It's like, this author has this coming and this one has this coming and this one has this coming. I'm like, click, click.
Pre-order.
Goodbye book budget.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of books coming, and I'm getting completely off track here, but I need to know, is the Jackson Harbor, the 6th book, is it up for pre-sale?
Okay, so there are 6 books out, and book 7 is up for pre-order. It comes out in October. And it is Veronica and Colton.
That's a long time to wait, Lexi.
Yeah, well, it's a lot not written, so...
Okay, you guys, I'm telling you, if you have not read The Boys of Jackson Harbor, there's actually a little Easter egg in this book, just that you mentioned the brewery in the book at Smitty's Bar. But okay, Leah, you can go back to ask your questions. I'll fangirl about the Jackson brothers in a little bit. Anyway, or the Boys of Jackson Harbor.
I love Jackson Boys.
Is there a trope that you are not likely to write or you're least likely to write? Is there a trope that you don't ever want to write or not read even?
Well, okay, so don't want to write. I don't know if I can. We're calling it reverse harem these days. When back in my day, we used to call it menage and more. But I have a lot of like, dude, happy is happy. You like do you, and if everyone is consenting, I'm there for you. but my own picture of like love and happily ever after I have a lot of trouble like suspending my disbelief to be like,
Mhm.
all 5 guys are totally going to be happy sharing for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just a lot of penises to keep track of. And, you know,
It's
I mean-
one thing for a weekend.
There's a
but,
lot of sword
like,
crossing
forever is
there.
a long time. No, but like, so, and I could probably even enjoy reading one, although I haven't read anything more than just like 3 in a long time. I just read on vacation, I read what's it called? The Brayshaw Boys, the Brayshaw High School.
Oh, by
I
Megan
read the first
Brandy,
book in
Megan
that.
Brett,
Megan
Yeah.
Brett.
Brady,
Brady,
Brandy,
maybe?
Brady.
I don't know.
It starts with BRA. I know that.
One of my readers suggested it, and it just kind of been in the back of my mind. And when I was on vacation, I was like, let's give it a shot. So if you haven't read it, you don't know why I'm bringing that up right now. There is a scene. It's not a reverse harem, but there is a scene. One scene that's fun, and that's kind of more where I am. So that's probably, I'm unlikely to ever write that, but never say never, because sometimes you just want something
Stacey
different.
Kennedy has some really good ones that take place in her Wicked Horse Vegas series that is like some group interactions where 12 plusums and lots of goodies.
That's a lot of choreography, and I'm in awe because some writers do it so well. I'm just like, good.
Well, Katie Roberts is who I read a lot of those kinds of books from.
Love Katie Roberts. I mean,
have you seen her Barbie dolls? Have you seen her Barbie dolls though? I'm like, Katie, I love them.
Okay, so here's my overshare alert. Like, I feel like we should have a moment so people can mute if they don't want to hear my overshare.
No, these people all know that most of them are crazy like they are.
I want some smutty smut. Like, it is so good. And I mean, like, the one about like where he gives her to his best friend for Christmas, like
gifting me to his best friend.
Yes. I mean, like, let's just call it what it is. Good job, Katie. But daddy kink stuff is like not only not my kink, it like bugs me a little. So, but I want to read it because it's Katie. So I'm always like so tempted to email her and be like, could you just do a find and replace?
I will tell you though,
just find and replace daddy.
your dad will do the first one of her Taboo series.
Yeah.
So good.
So spicy. And I wouldn't suggest that you read My Dad's Best Friend because that one is totally a daddy kink with lots of daddy kink fantasy in it. But the first one, Your Dad Will Do. Whoa. Hello, sexy time. So good.
I love this. She like took this and she was like, yeah, I'll write these super
like
hot.
Here's the line and she is way over here.
And she's not pretending that they are what they are. I wrote her after I read Gifting Me to His Best Friend. There's a moment in the husband and wife are in bed together, and sorry, censor alert, but she's like, yeah, this pussy is yours. And he was like, well, no, honey, it's yours. Like, it doesn't belong to anyone but you. And like, she's kind of disappointed because the mine is part of the fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So while he has vocally given her autonomy, which feminist me loves, he sees that moment on her face and he's like, no, you're damn right, it's mine. And gives her the fantasy too. So we get both.
Right?
Katie, you gave us both. You're brilliant.
Yeah.
Every time someone calls out a mine in my book, I'm like, we like the mine. Don't take it away.
Elizabeth says she always redacts the daddy mentions when I read those Katie Roberts books. She takes them out. That's fair. That's fair.
I'll find and replace it for me and just email it on over. I'll send you my receipt so you can see I bought it.
Probably just send it to you. Anyway, I adore her. Especially if I want a sexy book. Like her Wicked Villain series is amazing. And that has lots of like...
That was part of it too. Like when Becky was in her slump, she's like, I just need something really good. I was like, go read a Katie Roberts book. You know it's going to be good. You know it's going to be steamy. You know it's going to be kinky. Like just, it'll get you out of everything.
Well, and
does.
it's like she doesn't waste time. Like if you sometimes I pick up a sexy book because I want a sexy book, and I'm like, oh, but don't make me wait 100 pages.
Right.
If I picked it up to get a sexy book, and she doesn't make you wait.
No.
She does not. She doesn't. So when you're writing, are you a pantser or a planner?
I am a tragic pantser. I'm what they call a quilter. So
Quilter.
I not only write and don't know what I'm going to write, I write completely out of order. And then I end up with all of these scenes that I maybe have some sort of ish idea of what order they go in, but I don't write them in any sort of order. I just write. And then I have to like stop about a third of the way in. And I like will write down everything I have on note cards and try to figure out what order it goes in, what's missing. You know, like I'll write the end of a book at the beginning. I'm I would never recommend it. Involves so much rewriting. It's so inefficient, but I have like 30 some books and this is the way I've done them all. I don't know.
It's funny because we interviewed Kelly Kay last week for a happy hour, and she does the same thing. She's like, a chapter comes to me, so I type it out, and she's like, and then I have to rearrange, and I just have to cut like tons of stuff out.
So I've learned not to. I write very thin in my first draft. It's not even a draft yet. You'd be like, people are like, I'd read your first draft. I'd be like, I'm like, you would be so confused. You'd be like, they hated each other. And why are they saying I love you? And, so it doesn't even make sense. But I write really thin because that way I can, when I figure out what goes in, I'll thread everything through and then I can beef it up. But I had to really break myself of when I sit down to write a scene for the first time. It's like, you want to incorporate the 5 senses and, it's like, nope, we can do that later. This is just to get the thing that's in your brain down because this is what you have to do in order to figure out what the story is.
Yeah.
So where did your inspiration for Orchid Valley come from?
So again, I probably should have chosen something that didn't have sugar on the rim. I feel like if Dean were across from me, he'd be very tempted right now with all the lip licking that's going on. Okay.
I was going to say inspiration right there.
I went on a little vacation a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, to a little neighborhood that's like an hour north of Atlanta.
Okay.
And it's just this little, honestly, what I think it is I think it's all these people who live in Atlanta. It's their weekend homes, and then they rent them out a lot. And it's it's in the foothills of the Smokies. And it's just lovely. It's just lovely. And so I thought, I'm going to set a series there. And I was leaving Jackson Harbor and I wasn't quite ready to leave Jackson Harbor, but I thought I was done. I wasn't. But so I was like, okay, how's this going to be different? And so I started with Brinley, who was very much, chosen family kind of book for her, or where she was raised. But, and, if you read the Jacksons, that is biological family. And then, the family that it grows so much because they just bring all these people in. But I wanted to start Orchid Valley with a very chosen family feel. And so it was fun to do something a little, it's family and chosen family and friends will always be like core parts of my series. I love big series. I mean, now Becky, right? Like,
right.
Devereaux, and it didn't matter if
Makes
she was
so much sense now.
Years ago or something that was contemporary. They were all somehow interconnected.
Yep. You always knew. Like, I will never forget, like I read early Montgomery's up in Massachusetts and Boston. And then the next book I'm reading, it's the 1940s, 50s, World War II-ish. And they're in Southern Florida, and it's like in the Keys. And you're like, these people are all related. And that was their mom. And then they were out on the West Coast growing hops at one point. And, So I love that. I love that
The big cast and the big families and the
it
guys
does.
can't help but get
Well,
girls pregnant.
I love Brinley and Marston's blah blah
Marston.
Marston's story because of the way it's set up with the fact that they got married in Vegas.
Hey, also one of my favorite tropes. Wake up married in Vegas will always be one of my favorite tropes.
It was so good because because you had the novella that was out first, and then we got the book, and the book opens with him getting the wedding invitation, and he's like,
It's
"We're
my wife.
married. We didn't get divorced." So it was so great.
See what I did there is she didn't really have amnesia, but she had teeny tiny bit of missing memory. Just
It was the vodka's fault.
It was so good.
but
But
I can't.
it's such a great story, and I really do love Orchid Valley. And then the next one, Every Sweet Regret, we had Stella and Case, which
Mhm.
are the siblings to Abby and Dean.
Never intended for that to happen. I apologize to everyone who's like, really.
No, I thought it was perfect. I loved it.
I think
I
it
thought it was
worked really
great.
well. And I love Stella and Case. Like I think that their connection, like their relationship, like it just was so easy for them. And I love the two of them together.
Well, and the unknown identity in that's a trope I love, like the mistaken identity or unknown identity trope, I think is such a fun um such a fun trope to do because
It is, but
she knew it was
sometimes it's not
him.
done well. But I really enjoyed the way that you did it. Like I think that you did it really organically and it wasn't forced or anything like that.
Well, it makes sense that it came from a dating app that was kind of anonymous, Tinder-ish, like without
Tinder. So we can all get in trouble.
right.
And then we have Abby and Dean,
Hmm.
who I will let Becky chat all about that.
I love this group of girls. So I just really do love this group of girls working together, their support, even as Abby was struggling with, being the chef and the baker at the resort and spa and stuff. When she opens herself up and starts talking to Brinley and to Stella, they're like, follow your passion.
Yeah.
Go forward. Be you.
Yeah.
I also like, and I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but I just will say the way you resolved the trust issues and the couple coming back for their HEA was so well done. And it wasn't so, as a bigger girl, I sometimes get frustrated when there's real bodied heroines and it's the love of the man that makes them realize how beautiful they are, or that it's with his love that they can accept who they are and all their curves and stretch marks and whatever. And I love that you didn't do that. Her realizations were her own. So she took control of her life, her body, her thoughts, and moved forward. And I adored that.
To me to make it clear that it's like she wasn't there yet. Like we found happily ever after. Like they're there, but she's like a work in progress,
Right.
like because I think that's the best we can hope for, right? Is to be at, and I gave her, despite the fact that she has body image issues and insecurities, and I also gave her things that I'm still fighting for. Like she's gotten to the point. There's this book called The Fuck It Diet, right? And the Fuck It Diet it's not a diet. It's all about how harmful dieting is for us and how we're heavier because we diet and how not all bodies are meant to be the same size. And to be your healthiest self, you really have to get out of that mindset, right? And so I kind of gave that to Abby, even in the midst of all of her insecurities and body image issues. She's like, yeah, I've done the whole yo-yo dieting thing, but then like I end up gaining more weight and like obsessing about food. Like that's not really what I want to be and where I want to be. And I find that I actually do better and feel better about myself if I just don't try to diet, I just try to be healthy. And just like let go. She's kind of let go of the idea of being smaller, even though she still has issues with accepting where she is. So, even as many issues as she has, I'm still like, in some ways, girl, you're light years ahead of me, because I'm still working on that. So yeah.
Well, and she took control too. She used her words and her mouth, like the guy that she knew was just being friendly because he wanted gym membership, from her to come work out with him or whatever. And it wasn't true attraction, but he was flirting with her to make her feel like it was. And her power to know that, to be like, okay, I recognize what you're doing, and I'm going to kindly put you off.
Oh, you're wrong.
You're wrong. And then, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but then the scene with her and Dean that happens around the gym, I loved that. That was a big emotional feeling for me, though, too, in that scene.
And one thing I loved is like he didn't want to fix her. He didn't want to make her better. He wanted her to see herself as he sees her. And like that big speech before, like the blow up speech, and how, like, what he says, and like her reactions to it and what she does after that happened. Like, I love that, because she really took what he said to heart. Like, yes, it was very like hurtful in the way he said it, but she took it to heart, and she's like, maybe I do need to work on these things that he's saying. And she made those steps, and like, she was better for it, because he opened her eyes to how she was self-doubting herself on things that she shouldn't have been, because nobody around her saw her in that same light.
Yeah. And she hides it, kind of, there were like people she let in to see, hey, I have some serious insecurities here. But for the most part, it was just this thing that she's this very like confident woman, who is who she is, and who isn't trying. Well, you have a big girl who's not dieting all the time. She must have so much confidence, it's like, how dare you look society's expectations of nonstop dieting in the face and say, nah, right?
Not me.
Well, and I think having Layla is that added element. I think having her be so open, so confident in herself, in a similar like body type as Abby, in the things that she says to Abby, and then when Abby meets the boyfriend of Layla, it's like,
yeah,
am I wrong here?
Yeah.
Well, and so Sally says, I also love that Dean didn't try to say, but I think you're beautiful, so why are you so concerned? He was very much aware that she needed to accept herself first, and she loved that. And Tina says, my favorite line is Stella says, Abby has a lot of walls up. Dean says something like, I'm in construction. I'll take the walls down for a living. Yeah. So, and everyone's like, yes, so much swoon. Dean was really swoony in this book. He
had some growth to do himself, though, because he kind of put himself in a box and had a hard time bringing himself out. Like, he's in construction. He had a hard time taking his own walls down.
He did. Well, and then there's the bitch that I refuse to name her. I hate her. Case's ex-wife.
Well, you're being nice. I'd call her a C word.
You did. Leah's like, she was content. I'm like, I know. She's awful. She's the worst.
She who shall not be named.
She who shall not be named does not deserve. Like, every once in a while, an author will be like, oh, I want to give them a redemption story.
No, she doesn't deserve
a redemption story. Just saying, Lexi.
Yeah.
Unless you have that planned, then okay. But
no, she doesn't get one because I don't get her. And my big bad female antagonist in New Hope was Meredith, and she did not get a redemption story, though there were times I was kind of tempted. The closest to like a true like villain redemption story is Veronica, honestly, in this upcoming Jackson Harbor book, because she kind of, she's the twin sister. Okay, yeah. I'll give you the setup because it's just the setup, you guys. It's not a spoiler. Nick is the main character. It starts on her wedding day, and like she's about to get married, and they walk down the aisle. Her sister's feeling awful, and her sister throws up like all over her flowers and wedding dress. And the groom is like, and Nick's like, oh my God, you're pregnant. And the groom is like, why didn't you tell me? So it's like, oh. So like she kind of has a villain role in that book, just in that she's like the other woman, right? And she's so different from her sister, which I'm kind of having fun playing with. Like they were foster children, and her way of handling being a foster child versus Nick's way of handling it. But she still wasn't like a straight up villain. And I have sometimes questions when I write these like really awful female characters, because I'm like, should I not do this? Should I not like, should I be more supportive of women everywhere? But this is the reality of my life, is that they're like the most harmful people in my life have been women who should have lifted me up and didn't, and who used their position.
Well, I mean, I had a Veronica in my life, and she ended up married to my brother, and a couple, 15 some years later, they got divorced because she's not a good person. So, and she should have, I mean, she was my best friend all through grade school and high school. Like in college, it should have been great. And then, when money and what she desired was available to her, she stepped on me and moved on to what she wanted. And so we all have an Amy or a Veronica in our lives, and, they need to get their just dessert. And I think Amy did. I said her name. Now she's gonna like come out the wall or something.
I really thought Veronica with her after Stella's book. She has her moment with her ex-husband at the end, and I'm like, oh, good, she's learning. And then I started writing Abby's book, and I was like, oh, girl,
she's not good.
Mess. She's a mess.
Veronica, though, like Veronica, by the end of the book, like she was fine. I was okay with her. Like she saw like how much of a douche nugget like he like the supposed like husband was going to be. Like and I think that by the end of that, like she was okay.
Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Okay, so in the chat, I'm going to add the link to our Facebook group. We share book recs, and I list free books when we come across them and stuff like that. We also talk about, like, we did a thing this week about STEAM and romance, and how we, as a blog, designate STEAM and what we like in our steamy romances. So if you're on Facebook, join us over in our group. Let's see what's next.
So are there going to be more stories in Orchid Valley? And is Smithy going to get a book? Because
Smithy needs a book. I don't think I could handle it.
He's a lot.
I love him.
I do too.
But he needs like a badass heroine that's gonna come in and like
crack the
whip on him and be like,
she's his dom.
Because he's such a playboy, and I'm trying to think, in Jackson Harbor, Levi is kind of the playboy of that family. And I mean, I love his story. He is my favorite. I think he is the swooniest of the boys, because he's the reformed playboy and he falls hard.
Best friends girl thing. I'm a sucker for best friends girl. You guys, I am like, my favorite tropes I am trash for. I don't care. I just love them. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It turns out amazing.
I was going to say, I'm not sure why you're apologizing. They're fantastic stories. And I'm such a brat. Leah will tell you, like, I complain constantly about Friends to Lovers, but your Friends to Lovers, I read them and don't even think about it.
Are you a Friends to Lovers closet junkie also?
Probably like my romantic suspense. I only read it in the closet. I don't tell anybody that I'm reading it. Because Leah loves romantic suspense. And I'm like,
I do.
I don't really love it. And then I'm thinking about it, like, I read every Shayla Black book that she comes out with. That's romantic suspense.
You read every Maya Banks book that has been
every Maya Banks book. romantic suspense. I read every Julie Garwood because, if you read Jude Devereaux, you got to read Julie Garwood. They kind of go hand in hand. And that
Because
whole Buchanan family.
back in the 90s.
Right.
You
Well,
go
and
to the
people
library.
don't.
I want Jude Devereaux today, Julie Garwood, Judith McNaught,
Not.
or Laverell Spencer. Those were your options.
Fern Michaels, maybe a Kathleen Woodwist, but you really got to be in the mood. Phyllis Whitney, she was a little bit on the naughty, dark side when.
Discover her. My naughty dark reads when I was in high school were the Anne Rice,
Vampires.
books. Yeah, it was like, she did what with his armpit hair?
Phyllis Whitney wrote in New Orleans in the post Civil War, so it was during Restoration, and they are dark and naughty. Oh yeah, Tina says Joanna Lindsay. Yep, I have so many Joanna Lindsay stories. That lady she was a dame.
I don't like enemies to lovers. That it's like a real hard sell for me. But then one day I was like, think about your very favorite books. They're enemies to lovers books. Like,
see, you're a closet
enemies to lovers, like really well done. Beautiful Bastard is obviously enemies to lovers.
Yep.
Court of Mist and Fury, if you like Akatar, like honestly, the Tamlin storyline and the Reese storyline are both enemies to lovers storylines, and I love them both. But Veronica and Colton is an enemies to lovers book, and I do not write that very often. So of course, right now I'm going through can I pull this off? Can I do this? Do I know what I'm doing?
Can. I have faith.
He annoys the shit out of him, and he's reformed and sober and has a stick up his butt, and that annoys the shit out of her. So it is what it is.
I love that. And Stephanie is on here saying, will Smithy get a book? I love him. He's so funny. So.
I should write him for a story. I don't think I could be in his head. I mean, he's just...
It might be a scary place.
Wait.
An homage to a good friend of mine. I'll have to ask. My friend Justin is just,
because really though, think about it. If you wrote him, it would be like, dude, where's my car? Like the Ashton Kutcher character.
Where's my car meets Bridgerton. That's the best way.
Yeah.
Yes, that is Smithy. We need this story. That or Dude, Where's My Car meets Strange Brew. So find him a nice Canadian.
Yeah. There you go.
What about Savvy? What is her relationship with Alec? It doesn't work out and she ends up with Smithy.
Yeah, Smithy would be totally down for that. I think, with all due respect to Smithy, I have to say, I think Savvy might have higher standards. Awful. I'm sorry, Smithy. But, I was like totally planning on writing a Savvy Alec book as one of the first 3, and Abby was going to be 4. But then Savvy was like, I'm not with Alec anymore. Which is just like the weird woo-woo of writing. I'm one of those people, because I'm a pantser, I guess, that I'm one of those people that it's like, yeah, so she broke up with Alec and now I don't know why, and she's not with him anymore and she won't talk to me. So that's where we are.
So second chance. I feel like that could be second chance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to help you here. Look at us brainstorming.
No, I'm not sure about Savvy at the moment. But
that's okay. You can write Smithy's then.
maybe Savvy and Smithy need a short. She can discover the inner Smithy.
There we go.
He is not stoned.
It might be a scary place, the inner Smithy.
So in the chat, I am putting up the link to join our Patreon. So the podcast is funded completely by our Patreon campaign. And by becoming a member of our Patreon, we actually do some really fun things, and we have a pretty active Discord server. We also host once a month our Drunk Book Club, which we've been very lucky. The authors that we've picked each month have come and joined us. And this month, we have a special one. Lexi Blake gifted everybody a copy of The Dom Who Loves Me, and she's joining us on Saturday night. So you can get details about our Patreon
It's
on our
amazing.
website.
Also not me.
Oh,
People come up to our tables at signings. Like I had somebody argue with me once. That was,
You were not like,
no, you wrote this. And I was like, I think you mean Lexi Blake. She's over there. No, it's you. And he did this and he did this. And he did. Like, that sounds like a great book. And I'm sure I wrote it, but I'm also sure I didn't. It's down there.
well, and you both have dark
think I know
hair,
what
but I
I
think
wrote.
she's a little older than you are, but you both have dark hair, and
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know. I know.
and she talks like she's from Texas, though.
the Lexi and then like the last name that's the boy's name. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's true.
she and Shayla Black are like buddies, neighbors down there.
They are. Yes, and when she came on and did happy hour with us, it was kind of like yours. It was an hour of me like fangirling over, oh, I loved this book of yours. I loved this book of yours.
She's awesome.
Leah's like, stop it. You're
No,
crazy.
no, but she was pretty great.
She was
Can I
okay
start
with my crazy.
Shayla Black, Lexi Blake story? Because
Yes.
they together, right? And I don't know, somebody had Trish Mint had posted anytime she needs like a palette refresher, she reads this Shayla Black, Lexi Blake book. It's co-written. That's like their virgin something, and it's like brothers.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like suspense elements, and they take her away, and it's dirty.
Yes.
So their virgin something is the name of it. So I don't know. My son,
They have like a whole menage series that they do together, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my son listened. I was listening to it. I downloaded it in audio. Do you know where this is going? I downloaded it in audio after Trish recommended it, and I stopped it in the middle of a spicy scene. And my son at the time
pause.
Divergent at bedtime, and so he's like, Alexa, play Divergent or read Divergent, and stop. Alexa, stop. Sorry, she's here. So I'm like in the hallway and I hear Alexa resuming. Alexa, stop. I'm so sorry. So
It's okay. The echo.
Their virgin secretary or whatever. And I was like running to the room. Stop. Yeah, almost very, very bad. Because I mean, it was like the moment I stopped was like, and he spread her thighs.
I think we all have that story. I had been listening to Megan March's The Ruthless King, and there's a scene where he inserts a butt plug. And I had been listening it into the car, and when I walked into the house, it connected to my Echo in my kitchen, and I homeschool. My children are home all day, every day, and it connected. And it's picked right up at that spot. And I'm like, stop, Echo, stop. Oh my God, mortifying. But yeah, we love those stories of people that'll be like, I was in McDonald's parking lot or in their drive-thru and listening to a book and everybody hears it. I mean, yeah, I think we all have that story.
I don't have the audio story, but I was like, my 7-year-old is a very she's like 2 or 3 grade levels ahead reading wise. So I'm sitting there reading my Kindle, and I just gotten to he puts it in basically, like the penis is like entering, and she's like reading over my shoulder, and she's like, "Mommy, what's that word?" I was like, "Walk away, Nora, walk away."
Stop reading over my shoulder.
I was like, you're not allowed to read over mommy's shoulder. She's like, but I wanted to. I'm like, no.
I mean, it's kind of like soap operas for me in the 80s. I used to sit in the, outside the door frame because I wasn't allowed to watch them with my mother. And I would sit just outside the door frame so I could watch around the couch and,
You weren't watching them with her.
No, sort of. I mean, maybe. Here is the sign up for Lexi's newsletter. If you aren't getting her newsletter, make sure you get her newsletter so that we can all be alerted when we're going to get book 7 in the Jackson Harbor series. Because,
Yeah, I have promised my readers a Day in Easton short story. It was like okay. By popular request, I will. So at some point this spring, summer, that will go out in my newsletter.
Okay.
And then it'll probably become like a newsletter bonus. But if you're looking
Excellent.
for Jay and Easton, that's where to find them. They were both.
So you said book 7 of Jackson Harbor is October, but
Yeah.
do you have something in between, or you?
Well, honestly, in between is July. I have my debut YA fantasy. It's called These Hollow Vows. Comes out with
Okay.
and that's been super fun. It's like a big pivot for me to include YA fantasy with my contemporary romance, but just really wanted to. And it was one of those, okay, just write a little and get it out of your system. Then it was, okay, maybe you can write this and put it up on Wattpad. And then it was me writing my agent and being like, I gave him like 2 sentences. So I'm writing this thing. It's YA fantasy. It's like this sadistic king kidnaps this girl's sister, and she ends up having to go to the fairy realm to rescue her, and has to like pose as a potential bride for this. I don't even think I gave him that much. But she has to pose as a potential bride for a fairy prince, and then the other court's fairy prince who's exiled helps her. Anyway, he was like, yes, please. Like, I know
Yes, please.
a dozen editors who would read that right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll write a partial. And I don't have any like experience in this field, so they're not going to buy me on a partial. No one's going to want to buy it unless I write the whole thing. But I'll write a partial and see what happens. So I sold on proposal.
Ah, that's phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I got to write this thing I really wanted to write, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm actually doing revisions on the sequel right now. Of course, that's totally crazy because the sequel comes out July of 2022. Round 2 of revisions right now. So, but that's just traditional publishing. It's just
that's exciting, though. It's exciting to get to spread your wings and write something that's a little outside your norm and push yourself creatively. Like, and I'm losing words here. The vodka is really going to my head.
I know, like it's my fault because these are not.
Well, and I'm sitting here. My husband came a while ago, and he's like, "You want another?" And I'm like,
I thought it was pretty much lemonade, and you guys are drinking pretty much vodka. And it's like, yes.
yeah.
That's mostly what.
Well, and I drink all my drinks out of a coffee mug, so like they're not normal size drinks because this is my martini. So
words are going to get hard really quick. So, as we're finishing up here, if you are still hanging out with us in the chat, go ahead and give us a hey so that we can get you entered in for the 3 books from Orchid Valley and then the swag that we have up. So Lexi has kindly offered the 3 books of Orchid Valley, and I have a coffee sleeve and a book sleeve and a candle that smells like homemade apple pie.
Makes me want apple pie.
Right? My family's so weird, though. Candles, they're very picky with what we can burn, and smells bother everybody, and they're just a lot of work. All of them. So, what else? Okay, we know we might not get Smithy, but are there more stories in Orchid Valley, do you think?
Honestly, I haven't decided. If there's another story, it will be Savvy's, and then that would wrap it up as far as I know. But until she starts talking to me, I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I'm serious. I thought she and Alec were going to be book 3, and I bought an image while I was still revising Brinley's book for Savvy and Alec. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll see.
I will say I loved Abby and Dean's cover. Like, I love the image. I love the couple. I love the color scheme. Like, I thought it was such a great cover.
Lindy Robinson did the photo. Mm-hmm. And so I went around and I was like, I need a plus size model. Like I need, and so my issues with stock photos with bigger girls is a lot of times they like, and also if you read any of my books with bigger girls, you see that I'm not into fetishizing the fat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's there, and they're still
Right.
beautiful and they're gorgeous, but it's not like like I dig girls with bellies,
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah, I like skinny girls are hot and you're hot too, like it's not. Anyway, so I didn't want a lot of the stock photos just like really seem to fetishize it. And I don't want that. I don't like that.
Mhm.
So Lindy had quite a few to share. Apparently, you're officially a plus size model at size 12, which
Is insane.
is like the smallest I've ever been in my adult life. And it took way too much running and calorie counting to be there. So it won't happen again. That was pre-children. So I'm like, that's a plus size model. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, so she had quite a few really nice ones to choose from, and I was so happy to see that. And then Hangley did the cover for all the series, and of course she's so good at what she does. I really love this cover too.
Mhm.
It just it just spoke to spring with I think they're cherry blossoms. I think they're supposed to be on there,
Orchids.
or orchids.
I could be wrong. They could be cherry blossoms. I think she did orchids on the whole series and then just colored them whatever for whichever cover to make them like. I could be wrong. I don't really know anything.
It just felt like spring. It felt refreshed, and like I said, I came out of a reading slump and read it and just adored it. I love that book.
I've been here tonight. I was like, honey, my husband's right outside the door. I was like, I match my book.
You do. You match.
Yes. And Dean had a beard on the cover, and I got a thing for men with beards.
I like a beard.
I like a beard a lot. Okay, so I have Stephanie and Leanne and Gina and Elizabeth and Sally. Anybody else here and around say hey? We'll give them a couple more minutes, or just a couple seconds.
How has writing been like? Because you have younger kids, and naturally they were home a lot, like through school. How has writing been like adapting around them?
We're slowly getting back to something that's closer to normal, but most of the year was just really hard. And I think the biggest thing for me, if you would have asked me last January 2020, one thing I could change in my life that would give me more time that I needed, I would have said, I don't want to be driving so much, because I was constantly driving people places. I was driving kids to school. I was driving my daughter to gymnastics. I was driving home from gymnastics. At the time, she was going to a gymnastics place that was about 35 minutes from my house. So there and back 4 times a week just got to be a lot.
Right.
Driving to appointments, But what happened once we started staying home all the time is I realized I'd sit down to write and it was like complete struggle bus. Now, partially, there's a pandemic happening. There's a lot to worry about. There's civil unrest. There's, there was a lot. 2020 was a lot. But also, I think I took for granted how much my brain needs that driving time, that like leisure time, that downtime to think, and how much thinking time is necessary for when I sit down at the keyboard. And
I hear from a lot of authors, they've taken the time they used to spend driving and now they spend it in the shower. And many have bought like shower crayons and write on the walls because it's a quiet place away from the day-to-day that they're kind of stuck in. I also know other authors.
I hide in the shower.
I mean, I'm with you till the shower crayon, then I'm like, I don't know if I go that far, but hey, you do. I'm with you,
right?
I know
it's some of the Starbucks writers, they like are starting to use the rooms, the YouTube rooms that are like the coffee house sounds, just so they have the ambient noise.
Yeah, I'm a Starbucks writer, and that's where I would go during the week if I just need to get away from the house. And then on the weekends when my family's home. Well, my family's home all the time. So I rented a room. My esthetician, so she does waxing and facials, but mostly just waxing, had 2 empty rooms. And I was like, I know you're kind of looking to hire someone, but are you going to fill both of those rooms? Because if you're not, could I rent one from you? Like, I need a place. I need an office. And so I rented a room from my esthetician. And so people are like across the hall getting Brazilians. And
You're just writing away.
It's terrible. I go there on weekends when my family's home. And I go there on Mondays because my son still does remote learning on Mondays. And if I'm home, he wants me to hold his hand. He's 13. He does not need me to hold his hand. I think I told you he was 12 earlier. He's 13. He's almost 14. He and I just had this conversation earlier. Clearly, I'm like entering into a phase of denial. But
mine turned 10 this year. Like my oldest turned 10, and I'm like, he's 10. Like
I'm gonna have an 18-year-old people. 18.
Well, 10's a big deal for me.
The double digits is a big deal. Yeah, my daughter will do that in June, and we'll make a big deal out of it, I hope.
Okay, so pick a number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick a number between 1 and 5. This is the first one we're picking is for the 3 books, and then the next one we'll pick will be for the book sleeve and the coffee sleeve.
I've got the 3 books for number 3.
For 3. That would be Miss Gina. Gina, you can email me. I'm going to put it in the chat. It's info@bookcaseandcoffee.com. If you email me your address, I will forward that on to Miss Lexi. And then now pick another number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Between 1 and 5, but not 3.
Number 5.
Number 5. So that will be Miss Tanya. So Tanya, she is here. I think she just wasn't chatting. So I will get that to Miss Tanya.
Okay, awesome.
So thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of our crazy and letting me be a stalker.
Anytime.
Love it.
Anytime.
We appreciate it. Congratulations on Every Time I Fall, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so
yes,
much.
Thank you so much.
Right, and thank you for having me on.
You're so welcome. Just a second.